What's the most pathetic attempt you've heard of to look manly? I once saw a P-plater, Australian 4 new driver, in a hotted up car waiting at the traffic lights in the rain. He was facing up a hill, and when the lights turned green he put his foot on the accelerator hard and attempted to speed off and ended up getting absolutely no traction. This resulted in his wheels just spinning and him doing a kind of stationary fishtail while slowly sliding back down the hill. He ended up missing the green light. I could not stop laughing. That's freaking awesome. You should've just waited up the hill while pointing and laughing. I once worked in an office where they let us pick out our new desks and order them from a catalog. My boss came in to check mine out and he noticed it was like 6 inches bigger than his new desk. I came in the next morning and he had made the maintenance guys switch them. He claimed it was because his desk was a better height for me. Shockingly, he turned out to be insane in other ways as well. My voice drops lower when I talk to my father-in-law. I rarely catch myself and talk normal. When I do try to talk normal, I think I sound squeaky. I am near 40 with 3 kids. My boyfriend does this as well. Whenever he's speaking to my dad, his voice will be unnaturally low, but as soon as you get any alcohol in him, he sounds like a freaking pixie. It's hilarious. When I was but 12, some kid came into middle school with a beard drawn onto his face in Sharpie. He desperately tried to make everyone believe it was his real beard, that he grew overnight. I must have hit a growth spurt. I wish camera phones were a thing back then. I started shaving every few days when I was 12 and was mocked for it. Had a full beard by 14 and still got crap for it. You really can't win. Post-college, my friend started a cigar night as a guys hangout night. I thought everyone always said don't inhale cigars because they were pussies and couldn't handle the strong buzz. So, I intentionally inhaled with every puff through the entire cigar. I got so sick I literally turned a pale shade of green like an old cartoon, and puked for an hour until only foam was coming out. Went to a party where there was a 4-man hookah set up. My friend had never tried one and was very curious. Turns out, while everyone enjoyed the hookah for a bit, went off to mingle, and come back to it later, my friend spent nearly the entire party at the hookah. He spent the latter portion of the party hovering over the toilet. When I was about 12 years old, I was walking into a convenience store with a friend. She was a total tomboy. In fact, she looked more like a boy than a girl. As we're walking in, she sees this sweet mid-60s ragtop Corvette and she's ogling it. I was too, but she makes this big thumbs up sign to the hot blonde sitting in the passenger's seat. This long-haired jackass in his late 20s coming running out of the convenience store and yells to my friend Sabrina, "Hey punk, quit freaking making eyes at my girl." He comes over, grabs my friend's arm, pulls back a fist. My friend is just stark white and speechless. I shout, "She is a 12-year-old girl. What are you doing? Stop." He finally stops, realizes what the heck he's doing, but always the jackass, says, "Don't let me see you eyeballing her again or I'll frick you up." Not sure what happened after he drove off, but his girlfriend did not look like a happy camper, hoping she dumped the sorry sucker. What a miserably little butthole. Back in the MySpace days, I knew a kid who took a pic of himself with his shirt off, then used Photoshop to turn his skin black and give himself a goatee. He also fancied himself a rapper and took on the stage name Diamond. Yes, with 2 eyes, because he was so hard. Affluent private school kids. 2 eyes for a double dose of idiot. I was dating this girl a few years ago, and I was meeting some of her good friends for the first time at Chili's. I had just turned 21 and they were all younger than me, so I thought I'll look so cool if I order some alcohol. I'd never ordered drinks before, so I didn't know what to order. I'd only been to parties where there was beer. I thought, nah, beer is no good. I need something with liquor. While I was pondering what to order, the waiter asked me what I wanted to drink. At that moment, only one drink came to mind. Yeah, give me a Cosmo, please. Cue the waiter bringing me a Chili's branded shaker that I got to take home, and me looking like a total square instead of the bad butt I thought I would look like. I felt embarrassed reading that. When the teachers say if you don't want to learn, then just leave, someone got up and left and swore at the teacher, grinning at his friends. About 30 seconds later he came back in saying, actually, I kinda need to know this stuff. I had a teacher who would say, oh, go fly a kite if you had a differing idea of what symbolism in a particular book meant. So I packed a folding kite in my backpack, and the next time she requested I go, I did. The detention was worth it. I had a friend who, when he'd go to the movies with me or one of our other male friends, would always leave an empty seat between himself and us so he didn't look gay. That, or our elbows kept poking him while we were jerking each other off. I had some friends in high school that would do that when we'd go to the movies. The empty seat thing, not jerking each other off. I never knew how to react, so I usually just sat in between them. A bunch of my friends and I were hanging out one time when my best friend's little brother, probably 15 or so at the time, did something very feminine. It was a long time ago, so I don't exactly recall what it was. We all laughed and I yelled at him, quick, do something manly, to which he replied in sheer panic, I could strip off my clothes and dance naked for you guys. Needless to say, we never let him live it down. Back in high school, I was friends with a guy on the football team who was pretty much exclusively a bench warmer. Throughout each game, he would try to discreetly rub grass and dirt on his uniform so it looked like he'd seen some action when he ran off the field. This is a little sad as well. My freshman year of college in the spring, at the rec pool. The rec pool was the place to be. Babes as far as the eye can see. In Idaho, my friend and I are out on the pool deck, and I've decided that as we are walking in front of some bikini-clad chicks that it would be a good time to de-shirt and reveal my awesome torso to them. Shirt gets stuck on my neck, and I, blinded by my own shirt, as well as my hubris, fall into the pool with my shirt still around my neck. I was so cool. A coworker of mine was a one-upping, bullshitting, blatant liar. We'd troll him every day to see how far his lies would go. The one that popped into my head when I saw this thread was that he drank a cutie of 10W30 motor oil to impress a girl. Is your coworker a car? I have a buddy who was hanging out with us and he starts with, oh, I'm friends with the local college cheerleaders. I'll see if they wanna come party with us. He texts them and they say that they're still on their way back from a game. New buddy comes to join us and we explain who we're hanging out with tonight. He informs us that the game was a home game at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 9 hours before this happened. All the guy could do was go, oh, well, I don't know where they are then. We know you don't, buddy. I got a friend just like that. It gets to the point where whenever he says something outrageous, my friends and I just say cool and change the subject. This guy would intentionally leave his fly open on his jeans so that people mention it he could reply, guess my huge dong is that's noticeable. Well, I have a new tactic. One time I went for sushi on a first date and I wanted to press the girl with how much wasabi I could handle with my sushi. I ended up snotting all over the place while tears ran down my face. I learned that a friend of mine gets dressed in this order: cologne, white shirt, more cologne, another white shirt, more cologne, another white shirt, cologne again, his normal shirt, and then more cologne. I've always thought he was just a built guy, but I've learned he's actually decently scrawny. There are 4 shirts. I guess this counts as attempted manliness. Back when I was probably 9-10, I was at camp. There was this girl that I liked, so in order to try and look cool, I'd take my glasses off and close my eyes real tight. Eventually she asked why I was doing it, and I replied that if I couldn't see, I gained super hearing and could hear nature all around me. Needless to say, I'm SAP's mammalian brother. You were such a daredevil back then. One time, I was with a laddie friend, and my mattress was kind of not aligned properly with the bed spring, and it bothered her. She said, let's fix it, and I said, no, I got it. Don't worry. As I bent down to push it forward, it was heavier than I expected. I grunted and pushed forward. I farted, really loud, as I did this. I'm assuming it was after this that she asked you to take a crap on her chest. I once saw a group of high school age kids in a local park accompanied by a young female. They're all hanging out and the alpha kid, in an attempt to impress the said female, gets up, takes his shirt off and walks around to all the picnic tables and starts lifting one side of it up as high as he can over and over again. It was quite clear that he had the strongest pubescent muscles. At a party in university, a reasonably tubby guy was trying to chat up a chick. She didn't seem particularly interested but was being polite. The guy gets a text, flips open his phone and starts to read it. Suddenly realizing the faux pas he has unwittingly committed, he proceeds to snap his phone in half, as if to say I care far more about this conversation than some meaningless phone. Girl realizes that was dumb and immediately leaves. So boy has no phone and no chance of getting any. Also, I know of a couple of 30+ males that went down and egged the local Occupy protesters. So tough. God dang, that's pathetic. I grew up in a small town and there used to be this idiot that would drive around in a crappy convertible by himself. He had his parents' hiffy speakers in the back and would drive around talking on his cell phone. The town didn't have a cell phone tower back then, similar to the story in the original post. I heard on the radio once that the guys who hung out with Frank Sinatra had a difficult time keeping up with him while partying, so they would get a watered down Coke so that it appeared to be whiskey, while Frank hit the hard stuff. That's just smart drinking. I was bringing my wife, who makes fun of how unmanly I am, a bowl of soup, and I filled it pretty high. The tips of my fingers ended up in the soup. To show manliness, I didn't flinch and ended up with blisters on several of my fingers. When I was younger, around 6/7, I had to stay at my grand's during the day while school was out. She had this little tricycle that was way too small for me to sit on, so I used to stand on the back axle and drive it around like I was a rally driver. Don't ask me. One day she had to walk around the shops. So like any good rally driver secret agent superhero, I gave her support via the Subaru again. Don't ask. On the way back we went another route and had to walk past 2-3 girls around my age, wanting to man up. I wanted to act big and hard, so I jumped off the Subaru, picked the tiny tricycle up and held it vertically above my head like a champion weightlifter. At the time I was a huge wrestling fan, particularly of The Rock. My favorite part of The Rock was the people's eyebrow. Google if you don't know. I strutted up to these little girls, tricycle above my head, turned to them and gave them the most badass people's eyebrow to ever grace this earth. Along with the line ladies. The only thing that could possibly happen, happened. I fell. Tricycle came crashing onto the floor. Elbows and knees grazed and tears in my eyes. My gran had to carry me home. I was only 6/7 at the time, but frick. Still hurts, man. No, on that day you were 7/7. I working out at the gym and it just so happened that a recent ex of mine was there at the same time. We met at the gym, so this wasn't really a shocker. I was at the pull-up bar and she was pretty close by, so I got it in my head that I should try and show off or something. So I started doing lots of pull-ups really fast and intensely when my hand slipped and I fell off the bar and right onto my butt. Kept my head down and just walked straight into the change room. Felt bad, man. I was in motor mechanics with this one guy in high school. He was a big of a wannabe thug douchebag. Nice enough, but also a know-it-all. He was always talking about things he knew, like the best way to work out, which he said was constant bicep curls all day. Sure enough, he had bigger biceps than I did. We had problems getting a Pose 1970s snowmobile to start after we fixed it. It didn't start when we got it. After I attempted a few 1- and 2-handed pull stats, he gets all macho, let me show you how it's done, and flexes. He grabs the pull stat with one hand and can't move it. He then grabs it with both hands and ever so slowly pulls it. I thought he was just joking around until he got frustrated. I got on a plane a few months ago. For background, I'm male. For example, a man. I put my bag in the overhead compartment and sat down. I looked over and saw a girl. If you must know, she was not unattractive. That is, really hot. She was having trouble fitting her bag in the overhead compartment. I, being the gentleman that I am, saw an opportunity to assist, thinking at some point down the road she might let me ejaculate in her. So I tried for about 30 seconds and then I said, "It doesn't fit." I sit back down and abort mating rituals. About 30 seconds later I looked up and another girl had gotten up and helped the first girl put her bag in the compartment, and it fit in like 2 seconds. I don't know what they did. I don't know how they got it. All I know is that I didn't make eye contact with either of them ever again. My favorite are the guys who refuse to drink a girly drink. They don't wanna be thought of as gay or a P. It's a drink, yo. Yeah, but the sugar gives me gut rot and leads to hangovers. Fight the bouncers bar staff in general. There are more of us. And the bouncers are sober. Good lord help you if you touch one of our waitresses inappropriately. We like our hot waitresses and most of them are dating staff. I'm starting to suspect you aren't really a doctor. My cousin has sure thing tattooed on his forearm in the most gangster looking letters he could find. He is pretty nerdy, but adopted a gangster persona after leaving home and joining the armed forces. I laughed out loud when I saw his Facebook picture showing it off, flashing the sideways peace sign trying to look fly with his new tattoo very visible. Cap sideways, of course. This isn't really him trying to look manly, just trying to look cool. I thought people were supposed to get over doing that after high school, not start it. I used to skateboard a lot. I also had a slightly overprotective mother, so anytime I went to a scatter park I was that scrawny kid in full pads. I didn't give a frick. It meant I got to skateboard. Anyways, I think I was 13-14 at the time. I'm minding my own business, probably trying to do a super stylish boneless in a quarter pipe. Don't hate. Old school tricks are rad. I see this dude bail and just lie in the bottom of the bowl area while his board flew out onto the deck. He was a few years older than me, was obviously not hurt seriously, and there were several of his buddies. Being a nice dude, I grabbed his board which had rolled close to where I was and rolled it back to him. I skated away not paying attention. Then I hear him call out "WHO did that." Apparently the board had rolled into his side while he was facing the other way. There was no way it had hurt in the least. I had made sure to roll it at a safe speed to him. As I turn around to see what the shouting was about, I see his buddies pointing at me. "Hey, you wanna fight?" he shouts at me. Now you don't know me all that well, but you can imagine I should be feeling slightly intimidated. And to be honest, prior to this situation, I always thought I would have been intimidated by a bully. Thankfully the situation gave me some much needed perspective. I had just done this dude a favor, and he wants to fight with me? What the frick, right? Is he serious? "If you wanna fight, I'm right here," I reply with no hesitation. He just kinda stared at me for a second, then turned away. I heard his buddies giving him a hard time, and it was like a joyous chorus of angels. I felt like I owned that frickin' scatterpark for the rest of the day. TLDR. Stood up to a bully, that was all talk. Bad fricking butt. Getting a motorcycle license to try and be manly cool. To actually realize it's fricking amazing and that the aforementioned status didn't matter to me once I achieved it. Knew a guy that got his first bike and full set of leathers, then spent hours riding up and down an alley scraping the knee of his suit against the alley wall, so that it looked as though he'd got his knee down on a corner. I used to waitress at a bar on the main street of a small town, which was also home to several restaurants nearby. Drunk dudes trying to bull's manliness to hit on me became normal after a while. One night as I was walking past two guys sitting at the main bar, one of them flagged me down on the pretense of some bull's question about the menu. Then, like a good friend, he started trying to wingman his buddy, telling me how he was such a great guy and thought I was cute and oh by the way was on the big NFL team of our state, and that I should totally be flattered that he was interested in me and maybe give him my number, go home with him. Meanwhile said guy is sitting next to us trying his best to look humble. After trying not to laugh at him outright, I extricated myself and for some reason did not explain to him the two main reasons why this tactic was clearly not going to work for them. One, unlike most people in that bar town, I really do not give a crap about football. Two, his friend was still in his work uniform from the restaurant next door. Sir, Buffalo Wild Wings is not an NFL team. I know a guy who at a party once told girls he was really good at glow stick dancing. From what I could gather, it amounted to putting glow sticks between your fingers and flailing a bit. He did not pull. My father was going to serve in Vietnam, but fortunately he wasn't deployed due to the war ending. One day, at work, he overheard a co-worker bragging about war stories in Nam, at which point he realized he was 8 years younger than him. Pathetic. It was only last week, brother, when I saw the big boss man coming down on the macho man. There was no way I was gonna let him brutalize the brother like he did to me, dude. That's why I was there, brother, right when you needed me, dude. It was only till later, brother, when I saw it on the screen when I saw him behind me, dude. I saw the demons in his eyes, brother. Cancer still eating him alive. The boss man stick still in his hand, dude. The macho looked at me, man, and thought about jumping on me, brother. I drive stick. I'm so badass. For the record, I love driving stick shift, but I don't see how it contributes to my masculinity. I feel manly every time I think about the fact that I have 2 cars and a motorcycle that all have manual transmissions. But then I think about the fact that my girlfriend taught me how to drive a manual transmission, and then I don't feel so manly anymore. My father picks up girls at bars, takes them to cool places and all sorts of impressive date crap, and then drops them back off, informing them that he's actually gay and is just making sure he's still got it. Trucks. I know a ton of people who own trucks. None of them use them for anything other than home. Why do they own them? Cause I'm a guy and guys have trucks. My father has a truck and uses it to haul firewood from one county to another reasonably often. That truck is old enough to drink. It's usually the people who own new, shiny trucks who don't use the truck. This will probably be buried, but around the age of 14/15 a friend of mine still had a squeaky voice. It hadn't started to break. After coming back from a 1-month vacation, he suddenly had a very deep, kind of odd voice. We all wondered what the heck was going on. He sounded like a cartoon character, more specifically one of the big stupid thugs in cartoons like the Turtles and Captain Planet. Clearly he was faking, but he refused to admit it. We knew because the voice was especially deep anytime a girl he liked was around, and because he just sounded so freaking stupid. Later that year his voice would squeak in a very high-pitched manner anytime he got excited, but he still insisted that his voice had already broken. This went on for 4 years until the guy was 18. Trough, the whole time he never admitted what he was up to, even though everyone clearly knew. He doesn't sound like this anymore. He gave it up once he started going to university. TLDR. A friend faked a deeper voice for 4 years just to impress girls. A few weeks ago I was drunk at a party house show. Some dude, for no reason that I can recall and I have a fairly decent recollection of the night, was glaring at me for the entirety of the last band set. As I stumble across the basement to get my coat and leave, he throws an elbow at my back. He missed. I gave him a what the frick look and walked upstairs. Somehow he makes it out of the house before me, and as I walk through the front yard to leave, he and his 6 buddies start shouting F and gay etc. I found out the next day from a buddy that he's 7 years my senior. TLDR. 25-year-old tried to instigate a fight with an inebriated 18-year-old but wouldn't throw a punch even though it was 6-on-1. He liked you. Once when I was around 11-12 years old, I had a huge crush on my cousin's friend. She was always with my cousin and sometimes they would come with my aunt to watch my baseball games at the community league park. One day after one of my games, a friend of mine and those two were walking a path that surrounded the baseball park. On the ground I found a 2x4 wood plan. So I picked it up and was eventually going to chuck it further into the woods to display how far I could throw it, impressing not only my friend but the girl I had a crush on that was with my cousin. They started to girl talk, so they had to usher themselves about 15-20 feet ahead of us so we couldn't hear. I assumed the girl I had a crush on was telling me cousin how she wanted to marry me, etc. 5 minutes passed and they were still ahead of us, and we only had about 50 yards of path left until we were back at the park to go home. I had to get her attention, so in a throw comparable to that of Eli Manning to David Tyree, I chucked that 2x4 plank of wood as far as I could over their heads. However, instead of it going over their heads and us jokingly discussing how I almost hit them, it fricking nailed homegirl in the back of the face. She caught it with her head just like Tyree did. She starts crying. She's bleeding. My cousin runs to get my aunt, and by the time she gets there she's already cussing at me. It was the absolute worst feeling in the world. The girl I had a crush on all summer was now bleeding from me cracking her in the head with a 2x4 like I was Hacksaw Jim Duggan or something. I got hired to be a photographer for a visual kei band's week in Pittsburgh. They, of course, played at an anime convention. I've also been a martial artist for about a decade. I swear. You give a bunch of anime nerds cardboard swords and suddenly every 5 minutes someone is getting in your face for one of the dozen women there. I said excuse me to someone dressed as a Bleach character as I went past and they pushed me. Then they asked me what I was going to do about it. I told him I was going to go backstage after I was done getting paid to take his picture and then go to my hotel room and have sex with my wife, who works with Japanese musicians, and then get paid to come back tomorrow to this event he paid for to take some more pictures. Then I took his picture. When I was like 19 I went on a date with this girl. I didn't have any cash at the time and she stopped at a pizza place and bought a large pizza. I didn't eat any because I thought men should pay when they were on dates. Since I couldn't afford to pay, I felt that eating the pizza would be taking advantage of her. I sat in the car, looking like a total idiot, and made awkward conversation while she ate like half of a large pizza. We never went out again. What really makes the whole thing pathetic is that I was proud of myself afterwards for displaying such manly restraint and was confused when she declined to go out a second time, eating food that is so ridiculously hot that it's making them cry a little. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.